Welcome to Touhyville. Steve and Cheryl with you here on a delightful Friday morning, and we're excited to welcome to the program Rein Bontreger, the Jasper County Commissioner. Rein Bontreger, one of three, correct?
Yes.
Okay. I want to start there before we dive into all the data center stuff. Just Reader's Digest version. What does the commissioner do? What do the three of you do for the county?
So the commissioners are the executive branch. By the way, thanks for having me this morning. The commissioners are the executive branch of county government. So we handle the contracts. We deal with physical properties. The courthouse, buildings and grounds. We're essentially the employers of county employees. So we handle HR. We handle anything that would deal contractual agreements, economic development, roads, you name it.
What's that? Quite the job.
Right.
Whoa.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Same job.
So I do joke with Ryan Hilton, Commissioner District 1 in DeMont area, Craig Standish, Commissioner District 2. To the east, he has the biggest area, and I'm District 3, which is essentially Rensselaer and South, that the three of us make one decent commissioner. So,
all right.
That's good.
Yeah, but everyone, each guy handles things a little bit uniquely. I mean, Craig Standish a little bit. He's everywhere, so we joke about that. That he's everywhere, knows everybody. And Ryan Hilton, his day job is the logistics director for Belstra. So those guys have a great handle on physical infrastructure, roads, traffic patterns. They're connected with people in the community in ways that I'm not. And then I catch and connect with people in ways that they don't necessarily. So the three of us, I think, really work well together. And I really appreciate working with those guys. And then the 7 guys on the council, they're the fiscal body. They would essentially be the legislative branch. And their veto power is if they don't like something that the commissioners are wanting to do, they could choose not to fund it. They set the budgets, they set the salaries. So the 10 of us really are a leadership team, and nobody approaches, obviously we have our day-to-day responsibilities, but we work hard to be together and pull in the same direction as a 10 group. We don't always agree everything, but we value each one's opinion, and we have got a good diverse group of representation, I would say, and personality types and business background, which helps to give us I think a balanced perspective to try to manage Jasper County. We are the top ag producing county, overall ag producing county in the state. We like that way of life. We want to preserve that. People like their way of life here, but we do have towns that need, we try to support them so they can grow. And there's a lot of unique needs in rural counties that maybe a more urbanized Lake or Porter County doesn't have to face, kind of like we do as a smaller county. But anyway, does that answer your question?
It does.
Yeah,
it does.
sure.
No, that's great, because I want people to understand a little bit more about why.
So I guess my bottom line is, as a commissioner, it's less about authority, telling everybody what to do. It's about responsibility, making sure things are taken care of and gotten done. And I do want to give a shout out to Craig and Ryan, especially because if you have a chance when you're downtown Rensselaer, take a look at the courthouse. Craig found a company that has cleaned it and is restored it, and it looks fantastic. The retaining wall looks nice, and so it really looks refurbished and fresh.
Yeah.
So
absolutely, yeah, it does. It looks great. All right, so now let's dive into the data center, and without spending too much time on it, because I know I want to get to folks' concerns, but I do want for people that are like, all right, I saw a little something about it on Facebook. I don't really know exactly what's happening. Tell everybody what's going on with the data center. And one of the things, so Cheryl and I took a ride with Craig Standish through Wheatfield, through the area where they're going to be building this, where there's actually, if I understand right, 3 different projects that are going on out in that area right now. Yeah. So kind of give an idea of
can we back up for 1 second?
Sure. Did I get too far ahead? Yeah.
Yeah. What I just want to kind of start with the need for data centers. That I think is here to stay. Like, we aren't going backwards now with cloud storage and AI and the need for 911, the backups to health and hospital records, things like that, now that there's so much cloud storage, it's not a question of whether or not we're going to have to build data centers. Am I correct in assuming this? And like, can you talk a little bit about how, when you got approached, whether or not like you had to put your eyeballs back into your head, and what kind of research then comes before you even consider this?
Well, interestingly enough, this whole started when Commissioner Hilton reached out to some county officials up in St. Joe County, New Carlisle. Everyone's heard about that. That's a much bigger project than here. Because, data center was kind of the hot topic. So we took a field trip up there and toured with and talked to some of their county folks, commissioners, their economic development people, and was just like, oh man, that's a big deal, right? The only thing we knew that was going to be going on in Jasper County at that time was the NIPSCO peaker project, which is the 4 turbines, which is under construction, which is for peak demand when, they can spool up as they need for peak power demand. So I remember, so we took a day, went up there, several of us, commissioners, council, and others went up, and was like, wow, that's a big deal. As I was driving back home, one of the things that county had done is they had a good handle on their aquifer, their water. They knew what their water capacities were and what the aquifers were up there in St. Joe County, which they've got, really good ones.
What's an aquifer?
Aquifer would be underground water reservoirs that, at different depths. That's where people draw, you drill a well to get water. So the aquifers are, so instead of a lake on the top of the surface, you've got water that permeates through the rock and so forth, and different geology. And that's where you get your, at the north end of the county, they have shallow wells. It's more sandy. Here in the middle of the county, you dig deeper wells because we have limestone geology, and at the south end of the county, they have a slightly different geology. Anyway, point being, I was driving home from that thinking, wow, we ought to do a water study because, man, this is a big deal. And I thought, we might have to deal with this topic in a couple of years. Well, turns out about 2 or 3 months later, here we go.
You're kidding.
Wow. the topic of a data center, because NIPSCO had that 300-acre parcel with a landfill, their landfill to the west on their property. Across the road to the east is solar panels. Directly to the north is the river, and then you do have some houses, on the county road to the south. So it's on their property. It's kind of a remote area, and they said they were, they talked about they had a potential developer. We didn't know who it was at the time, and that they were also going to look at developing their sister company, Genco, which was going to be paid for by the developer to provide power for the data center. So as the discussion started, point number one for us was, because obviously water is a huge deal. This was point number one. And there are farmers on the council and farm related interests on the commissioners. So when we learned that they were going to use the existing infrastructure from the river that the Schaefer plant has used for nearly 50 years, that really kind of addressed that major concern. They weren't going to be using groundwater to be drying up people's wells. Had they been using, and they were going to use massive amounts of water, then it really would have been a no-brainer to say no. But they're going to use the intake pond, the discharge pond. They're governed by IDEM and DNR. So the
Who's
authority,
IDEM and DNR?
Indiana Department of Environmental Management and Department of Natural Resources.
Got it.
So that's where NIPSCO has to get their permits to use.
So they're
the water.
governed, like people are watching them.
And that's federal, right? That's
state
or Indiana state.
State,
Yeah.
And well, there may be federal. I mean, it is somewhat too, but state.
What I want to make sure that people understand is this is not you out there with the vial checking the water. This is not you and Craig and Ryan. This is actually above you guys.
So we did
this,
to address that, though, we did in our agreement make sure that the county gets notified of those reports. We get copies. We will be getting copies of those reports. But as we got information from them, the type of design that they plan on implementing is mostly air cooled, and they would use 8 million gallons a year. Now compare that to an irrigation.
How did they get to the 8 million number? How did they know that?
Because they have design teams that design everything and work on, but they need it during the hottest month, probably like now, for some evaporative cooling. So 8 million a year. Compare that to as I mentioned earlier, we're the top ag county in the state. An irrigation pivot, if it's having to run, we're having a dry year, and you have an irrigation pivot running like 160 acre field or something, would use about that much in a week. So it's not, I mean, it's, 8 million gallons, but I mean, over the course of a year is manageable. And on the water topic of water subject, we did just hear a briefing on our aquifer management study, and we'll be talking about that in the August meeting of the commissioners. So we're getting that information back, and we're not pressing our capacities, but getting back to the point.
Can I ask one question?
Sure.
The side thing, you said you're going to have a meeting. Is that open to the public?
Yeah.
Do people attend, but then this is not a meeting where people start streaming things or whatever.
Well, I
it's
mean,
just,
we do entertain public comment, but our commissioner meeting's on the first Monday of the month, and we do meet at 8:30 in the morning. And I know we've had some people say, well, why do you meet then? Why can't you meet later? Historically, our commissioners have met at 8:30 in the morning because you're dealing with vendors and other folks during business hours.
mm-hmm.
To that effect, though, if you go to the homepage of Jasper County government, on the upper right corner, there's a YouTube link, and all our meetings are archived. That's per state law. And those meetings are archived. People can watch our meetings anytime. There's a YouTube link there. So anyway, but point number one being, I just want to reiterate that the water they'll be using is the same water NIPSCO Schaefer coal plant has been using for nearly 50 years. They're not drilling new wells. It's river water and of the same parameters that has existed. And so that really was point number one for us. Okay, so that really handles the water, that issue. And once again, I can't speak to data centers or projects in other counties.
Right.
I'm dealing with Jasper County.
So are all data centers different in so much as where they're located and the resources around them differ from place to place?
Well, I would say definitely.
Okay.
And I would say any other spot in Jasper County, I wouldn't necessarily think would be appropriate. But it's right there by the power infrastructure. So they got the water taken care of, and they have the partner that had the property. So we also know that we learned some lessons during hard lessons during the solar projects. Back in 2018-19, because of federal policies, it was told that the coal plant is going to shut down in the county. And at that time, NIPSCO, Schaefer Generating Station, is the largest taxpayer in the county. Nearly 20% of the total tax base in Jasper County was that entity. And now you're going to lose that asset. So the previous commissioners at the time ran a task force, did some studies, tried to figure out how do we mitigate
make up
the loss of taxes for those townships, especially, but the county. Well, then, because of Green New Deal and all that kind of stuff, which you can debate those policies all you want later or some other time, and maybe you already have, but solar project came to town and was going to be an AV boost. We didn't know what we didn't know at the time. I was on the county council at the time, and and my background in county government was I got caucused in because of a gentleman had to resign in 2009. And before that, I was on Township Advisory Board. So I was on the council. We're trying to figure out how do we boost the AV, assessed valuation, which is essentially the taxable value of the properties in the county. How do you elevate that so you can drive everybody's rates down a little bit? Otherwise, if the value goes down, everybody's rates go up. That's the current levy system, which I can talk about that in a little bit. Also, as part of the calculus why we entertained a project like this, because the state is, my understanding is going to be shifting to a rate-based system, meaning if your assessed valuation declines, the income to the county would decline along with it. Currently, they have a levy, which is Jasper County can, I'm not sure what the current levy is, but can tax X dollars.
Okay.
And if your AV rises, everybody's rates drop a little bit. If the AV declines, everybody's rates rise a little. County still gets the same money. But their plans are to change that to strictly rate-based. So your income is going to be tied directly. And they're shifting. My intentions are, or what I understand is from a presentation we got from our Commissioners Association, is that they're shifting part of the tax burden off of homeowners, which is a good thing. Currently, about 51% of taxes are paid on homeowners. Well, by 2030 or 31, that'll drop to like 38%. And then they're also working on, I think, if I remember correctly, devaluing farmland. And obviously, being a big ag county, farmland determines our income. They're going to drop that value. So that trend line is going to go down. And so that's going to affect Jasper County in that way. So we need to look at a project. How do we boost some assessed valuation in the county to help balance things out? So we didn't necessarily go hunting for this project, but we have the water issue taken care of. You've got a relatively remote location at the north end of the county as described. But you're dealing with folks though who went through these, who had to endure difficult times through these solar projects. So Dunn's one, we didn't know what we didn't know. That developer, they were running traffic through the communities. It was not good.
Okay.
Dunn's 2 comes along, a bigger project, and now we're at a point where we can actually had an economic development agreement. So we actually got some cash payments to come into the county. But once again, you still have folks enduring difficult construction scenario and feeling like the area of Wheatfield is not getting any direct benefit from it. So those comments stuck with me and have remained with me a long time. So this project comes. I feel like definitely overall, as far as the actual physical postage stamp or the footprint of this project is limited. It's not thousands of acres and it's not wind turbines like in the South. And our goal in Jasper County is to try to be a balanced approach. Neighboring counties have hundreds of wind turbines and way more solar than we do. And so we'd like to not be overrun by any one particular kind of a project. And so during this project, I know my intention was, as I was learning more about it, I could see us having one in that location, one and done. That's been my opinion. And as we started learning what their economic impact agreement was, we started pressing in our negotiations that here we have a town of Wheatfield, which has really been underserved and overlooked in many areas. It's the one town with no water infrastructure. And when I bring this up, it's not that we're trying to tell people everyone's going to have to hook up to city water. That's going to be for the town of Wheatfield to figure out. Right. But for the town to grow and develop as maybe they'd like to do it, we've been learning that you really need those utilities in place to make it possible. So as part of our economic impact agreement, so this was one half of the agreement, not tied to any development. We would have gotten this money even if the development would have failed to be developed. We would have gotten this money. So we got $25 million set aside for Wheatfield to be able to get city water. And that money was based on a report they had already done with an engineering firm about what it was going to cost. So they've already had plans and intentions to do it, but it's expensive. And when you're trying to tell folks you're going to get water and then you have to pay this huge debt service, it's not affordable. But now, getting back to originally describing what a commissioner is, it's our responsibility to look at the county as a whole that they can hopefully grow and prosper. And so if we have now the opportunity to get this money that the town doesn't have to pay for, they get this potential water system at no cost to them. And for folks who then maybe do hook up to water, they're only going to pay for the water they use. Currently, if your well goes bad and you have to replace the well, that can cost significant amounts of money. But even just for the business aspects of it. So that was very important to me because I do remember people's comments in that area that when is this area going to see some benefit?
Now, when you're saying 25 million, is that for Jasper County or is that for Wheatfield?
That is for Wheatfield municipal water.
Got it. Okay. So that's allocated there.
It will be, yes. I mean, so it's going to come in stages.
Okay.
So, and some of these conversations came out. Rein Hilton, thanks to him, made a great initiative, reached out to the town of DeMont officials and the township officials up in the area. We had some conversations. What do you need up here? What would be beneficial to this area? So additional economic impact money was money for fire, EMS, sheriff's department, Wheatfield town law enforcement to help them get equipped in ways that they've been underserved for a long time. New vehicles, staffing. And so in this previous commissioner meeting, we allocated nearly $1 million of that money directly for those needs in that area. So because we expect in these next 2 or 3 years, there is going to be definitely a lot of traffic, construction traffic. And we've been working hard. Craig and Ryan have done a great job working with the company and our construction compliance monitor, which I'll touch on that, to make sure that there are designated routes. And that's why we gave extra money now to the sheriff for off-duty extra security, traffic safety, to make sure that these routes are followed. And I think Craig told me we already issued a fine to somebody who went where they weren't supposed to go.
And how long is the madness going to, like, is this project going to take?
It's probably going to take 3 years.
And how many people, how many households in Wheatfield are directly impacted by crazy traffic and noise?
Well, I don't know how many households exactly, but definitely that north corridor, that north end is going to be impacted. But we've been working out for them to have offsite parking for these, and then workers shuttled in. So you're not just having endless trucks running. So that's been, and the company and the developers, NIPSCO, Amazon, have all been
That's
working
the
with us.
thing too. Sorry. Where does Amazon come in? Is Amazon the developer?
Amazon is the data center.
That's
Yes.
the data center.
Yes.
Okay. So when you say developer,
Yeah.
that's Amazon.
That's Amazon.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. And they'll be purchasing that parcel from NIPSCO. So they will be the owner of that parcel.
So from what I'm understanding, when we went on the tour with Craig, it was an hour, because he just said, come into my truck and I'm going to take you around and show you where this area is. Because I was like, Mommy, if he just asks me to leave the truck right now, I'm not getting home. No. But anyway, so he kind of gave us the full tour and everything like that.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to understand. I lost my question. Oh my gosh.
We were on it.
Just the number of
We were on the
households.
trip with Craig.
Yes.
And what did you see?
And this is what I wanted to know, because it sounded, he was filling us in on all the homework assignments you guys have done to be responsible in making this decision. So when I go online and I see social media and people screaming and yelling, I'm always like, okay, I get the feelings, where the feelings come from, and I need to know the facts on why what's with the anger. Like and I couldn't quite understand that. And then when I talked to Craig, he was like, you guys, not only in your car ride home from St. Joe's Township, knew, okay, let's do a water study before it even became a thing, which was great great thinking on your part. And it was just had to be funnier when there was a point to it, if you will, not just curiosity. But what else have you done in terms of, because when I read data things, I hear noise, I hear water contamination issues, but you guys have done specific case studies and scientific stuff, so to know that we're not going to be, as much as you can. I mean,
as we can.
Yeah.
So Amazon, once again, we told Amazon, or the developer early on before we even know who it was necessarily, and when we did find out Amazon, it was like, you guys are going to have to make the case for us, because obviously our way of life and our bread and butter, literally ag, is most important. And why it is attractive to consider an agreement like that we did approve is that we're getting this infusion of revenue up front. So it is, if this project would go the entire 35 years of agreement, it would mean potentially, it's projected to bring like $750 million into the county. The company would receive a benefit of savings over that time of $380 million. That's a lot of money. But the point is, it gives us money up front to be able to invest and increase, where you don't have that flexibility with just taxes through the normal taxing process. So we have the opportunity here to infuse money where it's needed in that area and provide the resource. And then over the next 3 years, we'll be getting 3 equal payments of $15 million. And that's what our next task is as commissioners and council, is to establish what our investment strategy is going to be and what our investment committee is going to be. We'll likely We've used Baker Tilly, which is an accounting firm in the state, to do some analysis for us. And we will likely pull in some folks locally who have, investment experience with large amounts of money, so that we can preserve this principle and establish local endowments that can benefit needs within the county that we now don't have to use tax dollars for, whether it's support for early childhood education, which the county currently does out of our budget. Now we can maybe shift some of that benefit we've been giving to these endowments, and we can establish those priorities. And then there's a process where these entities can apply for a local grant, essentially, for this kind of funding. So it doesn't have to run through the things that these are associated things that are important to the county, but they're not directly county responsibilities, if that makes sense. Right. So that's why it was important for us now. And so our next task is to make sure that we get our investment committee set up and our strategies in place, so that when this revenue comes, it's preserved for the long term. And that's really been our goal. And it was none of our intention to do anything that is going to purposely hurt the county. We all live here. We've been established here. And I know it's a struggle to consider that, but we also know that NIPSCO's intention, when the federal government stops sending extension orders, is going to eventually shut the coal down. So it'll go away. Now, maybe they'll retask it. I know Genco is going to be natural gas generation, but who knows? They'll retask the property for some other purpose. And I know NIPSCO has their own issues as far as dealing with public perception, but in regards to working with the county, this has given us the opportunity to work through some old difficulties that we had in our relationship in the past. And our relationship with NIPSCO now is, I would say, as good as it's been as far as Jasper County goes. I can't speak to anything else, but with Jasper County government and NIPSCO leadership, they have kept us informed. They've considered our concerns regarding traffic and permits and being up to date. And so this has given us the opportunity to clean up some old wounds, so to speak, that have existed, that people, are mindful of. And so
are you saying you feel this is going to have a positive impact to Jasper County, and that you guys did due diligence in working out as much of the obvious and hurdles as possible, so that it really is the perfect spot for a data center?
It's kind of a unicorn spot for a data center.
Okay.
I will say that. And that's where, once again, I can't speak to other places. I think, see, that's the underlying concern that we have as commissioners. Back in the 80s, state legislature essentially gave local counties home rule, local zoning and permitting authority. And many times that's been, over the last few years, that's been threatened to be removed. And our concern was, do we negotiate a deal on behalf of the county with county concerns in the forefront? Or do we, some other counties have done moratoriums and tried to ban this stuff, which I'm sure will get challenged, or there's limits on moratoriums now. And if the state decides that counties are not playing ball and won't develop, and they strip home rule, now you're going to have this stuff cited from the state level, and you have less benefit from it and less control as to where it goes. And I know some people are saying, well, that's fear mongering. Well, there's a little bit of fear in there that I don't want that to happen.
Yeah.
And so I did, not this year, but in 25, went down and testified at a committee hearing on these topics. And I basically said, listen, Jasper County has a balanced portfolio, some solar, some wind. Data center was not on the horizon at the time, but I said, we've shown we can do it without you telling us how to do it. From the state level, we have been balanced. We're minding our business. And so preserve that for us. Don't remove that from us.
Well, and on top of it, you live here. You have since 1986. Rein Hilton everybody lives within, I know Craig was telling us he lives 11 miles from the actual site.
Yeah. So
there are vested interests. It's not like you're like, yeah, bring it in. If it poisons the water, we'll all die. That's not how you accept your responsibility as a commissioner.
No, definitely not.